And he wants to understand the Russian position, and perhaps more importantly, he wants Vladimir Putin to understand our position.
That's U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's defending the president amid a whole bunch of criticism about the president's upcoming summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. So John Bolton goes on to say that he doesn't think, quote, anybody ought to have a case of the vapors. Here to weigh in, Fox News senior strategic analyst General Jack Keane. General, what do you make of John Bolton's comments?
Well, as it pertains to Putin, certainly, one, we should definitely have this summit. I mean, some people are concerned about legitimizing Putin on the world stage, given he's been something of an international pariah. I agree that that is what's going to happen. But listen, I mean, the issues are just so serious that the issues certainly are clearly far more important than Putin's domestic audience here. We have thousands dead in Ukraine, hundreds of thousands dead in Syria. Putin has got his hands over both of those countries in enabling the harm that's been coming to people, meddling in elections in Europe and in the United States. He's been backdooring assistance to North Korea despite the sanctions imposed by the UN. So there are major issues that we have, and I think our president wants to arm wrestle these issues on the table with Putin and see if we can get some resolution.
Maybe get some resolution. I guess I would just ask, I understand the point of the whole summit with North Korea, right? Because that was just groundbreaking and we needed to do that. What really is the point, though, in having a very public spectacle of a summit with Putin? Can we anticipate or expect to really and truly get anything out of this, General?
Well, I think, I believe that Secretary Pompeo and Ambassador Bolton have gone out of their way to create low expectations, much along the lines that you're expressing some reservations here. And because they have not said one positive thing in terms of what an expectation would be in terms of a positive outcome in Syria, pulling troops out of Ukraine, nothing on that line whatsoever. So we're going in there, I believe what the president wants is to begin to have a relationship, much as he started with President Xi at Mar-a-Lago, which eventually led to Xi's cooperation on North Korea. And I don't think that that's disputable. Whether the North Koreans actually come full circle on denuclearizing, that's still an open question. But I believe that's where the president's mind is. I want to start a relationship, make it personal, and see if we can eventually make some progress. Likely not a lot of progress at the first meeting.
Well, you know what? You can't fault him for that. You really can't. You got to start somewhere. General, good to see you. Thank you so much.